All right, good afternoon. I'm happy to see everybody awake and here after all that carb at lunch. I think we're going to go ahead and do introductions first and then go from there. So.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Nina Dosanjh. I am the Chief Technology Strategy Officer for Vanguard Properties. We're an independent brokerage in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Awesome. I'm Matt Hendricks. I'm the Senior Director of Industry Affairs at Zillow Group.
There you go. And I'm Jeff Bosch. I'm actually a recovering broker that now runs an MLS in Northeast Colorado, IRES MLS. And this is really a work group session today. One of the things that we try to do in broker advisory is to spotlight some of the pain points that start in the brokerage community and then filter out through the various work groups in RESO. And I know we had a lot of new people in the room. Just out of curiosity, who are my brokers in the room? If you could raise your hand. Wow, there's normally there's at least 5. I think we've got 2.
That's 3 that I see.
So, I mean, that's a big challenge, right? Because everything that we do originates with the brokers, right? And comes from there. All the data we touch, all the services we provide, the software systems, et cetera, start from there. And yet they're not typically part of this conversation. So if you're not involved and you want to be involved, the Broker Advisory Work Group typically meets once every 2 months. We typically have a presentation in both spring and fall on stage. I'd encourage you to participate if you want to be part of that conversation, because even if you're not a broker, you might be able to bring some insight that you get from your customers that helps us inform and kind of help bring things up. And to that, I'll just let you know that this is the one non-technical work group. You don't have to speak techie, right? Brokers and technologists do not speak the same language. Our job is to grab what we see as problems and try to filter them down for other work groups to run with them. And some of the things that you've seen come out of that, you've seen national policies adopted by NAR all the way down to simple field additions for things that, hey, we're missing this and this is really an important piece for the brokers that they don't have in their MLS or they can't use in their vendors. So I would encourage you, it's a small but good group, and we're always trying to recruit people in. So if you want to join us, please look on the RESO work group, and we're happy to have you join us. So.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I would add to that is that if you're running an MLS and you have brokerages within your MLS that are reaching out to you with problems, or there's a squeaky wheel somewhere, send that squeaky wheel to us. We want to hear it. The way that I got involved in Broker Advisory Work Group was I was working with a new technology partner, and that partner had asked me for an XML file, and I texted Sam and I said, "Is this still happening?" And he said, yeah. And then he invited me to come talk to the Broker Advisory Work Group. And I was like, I am not that technical. I mean, I know what I'm doing on the brokerage side of things, but on the technical side, I just don't. And he said, don't worry about that. Just come and talk about your problems. And I did, and now somehow I'm the vice chair. So
you went to a therapy session.
I went to a therapy
and now you're
session,
the vice chair.
Exactly. But it's I think for the brokers, at least in the room, when you come to a conference like this and you see the people in the room that are solutions oriented and that really want to change things to make a difference for the brokers, many of them don't know what you all do all day, and so there's an incredible amount of respect that I have for all of you in the work that you guys do. But we still have a number of very unique problems and challenges to face in the industry, and I think we're going to talk about some of those today.
And as we dive in, Sam, I think, started the day with an admission that there would be some unscripted parts to the day. Normally when Nina and I find a broker to bring on stage, sometimes they don't even know what RESO is. So we've kind of got to coach through where that might be a connection with standards and with everybody in the room. But with Matt, we know he lives that every day, all day. So we just decided we're going to have a conversation on stage and we're going to see where it goes and go from there. So.
Yeah. So Matt, maybe it would be good to start with kind of the scope of your day-to-day job role.
There's a large scope there. In industry affairs, we're dealing with everything across the industry, all the external stakeholders, the local associations, the state associations, National Association of Realtors, the MLSs, the brokerages, anything that is out there in the industry, we're dealing with that. But on top of that, with what I deal with, it's brokerage operations, because Zillow is a broker. So we have a brokerage in every single state, plus every province in Canada. We're in this world now dealing with the exact same thing that all of our customers and our clients have been dealing with for as long as they've been doing it. And I too am a recovering broker. I was a recovering broker before joining Zillow. Now I'm a broker again for Zillow. But we have to deal with the data, everything that RESO does, we deal with on a daily basis, and we do it at such scale, and we're very vested in it, and it's complicated, it's difficult, things break all the time. There's not standards across everything. There's not standards that everybody can agree on. I mean, those work groups, that's a great place to come and try to work some of that stuff out. But we'd like to be very involved in this stuff because we have a big stake in it. We deal with a massive amount of it, and we want to be here to support it and see what things we can do as a collective to continue to push the industry forward.
Love that.
And I think too, again, the scale, right? Anybody that's operating on a statewide or national scale is interacting with way more data, way more differences in data than maybe, when I started, I happened to be just in the middle of the MLS service area that I was in. So I didn't have to interact with that. Yeah. But I don't know if it's too early to share that. I know you were trying to map out some of the craziness for you to interact with all the MLSs that you do.
Well,
let's talk about
I want to kind of talk about what the problem looks like, and I think that this is true for MLSs, it's true for brokerages, and it's true for the licensees, right? We don't have a unique identifier or unique identifier for office codes for brokerages, and so what this looks like, if you are, so in my area, we are in 7 different MLSs. So that agent could potentially have 7 different IDs. The data that then is aggregated in the data share doesn't always include everything. So it's patchwork on the inside, on the broker side. So that's the problem that we're talking about, is that, we really need to push for unique, identifiers for agents, brokerages, offices. Mm-hmm.
So from my personal experience, one, we deal with a massive amount of IDs and everything coming into Zillow with all the agents that we work with. That's their licenses, what their email addresses, all those different things. I mean, we're talking millions and millions of lines of that type of stuff. Speaking from a very personal standpoint, I'm a broker for Zillow in 4 states, and I'm a member of 27 MLSs. So I have to log in to a lot of things all the time. And just to kind of put that in perspective, and obviously I covered up on my logins for everything. On a weekly basis, this is just part of what I have to deal with to get into different systems and everywhere that I'm a member. I didn't even put in here the different state licensing systems that I have to log into. My license numbers are on all those things, but every single MLS that I log into, since I'm the designated principal, employing broker, supervising broker, whatever you call it in your state, I also have maybe an office ID that I have to log into that is not connected to my personal account. And then even the association, the MLS, are different logins a lot of times. So for me to have to do this on a weekly basis, along with all the other brokers that we have, it is difficult. And we're a technology company, and I can't solve this. This is spreadsheet data that I'm working with on a daily basis. So there's got to be a better way for all of us in here, whether you're an MLS, an association, just an agent, to figure out what is that one unique identifier. Because it can't be your license number, because that's different in every state. It can't be your one MLS login, because that's different. It's not even the same naming convention in each one of those. So that's what I'm looking at, and that's what I want us to talk about how to solve, or where do we go to at least start to solve it.
Yep.
So I mean, RESO has done some of the legwork when it comes to, just kind of building an infrastructure, but it's kind of the bigger question is, who is in a position to kind of solve this problem?
And Matt looks at me.
I think we all have opinions on it. But
no, I think we do all have opinions on it. There's been a lot of work that's been done on the ULI, but even Matt's login map here is just part of the problem, right? Like even, because we happen to be in the same state, and even going back and forth between MLSs, you might get a difference in a description of an agent's name or a broker's name or a team, or, and really understanding who you are working with. So it's not a simple problem to solve. And again, RESO's done a good amount of work on this. This concept is out there. There's a prototype on how it could work. But ultimately, somebody needs to stand it up. Somebody needs to run it, right? And there are, I'll be careful here, but as an MLS exec, there is political issues, right? Sometimes it's better to have an outside group adopt and manage a standards piece rather than a particular consortium of MLSs or brokers or whatever, because you might not get buy-in from everybody if you do it that way, and then you kind of defeat the purpose of it a little bit. So, but truthfully, anybody that's working in any, not even in any scale, I mean, even if you're, a two-person shop and you're, in multiple MLSs, you have this problem all the way up to the scale that you're at.
And it's not just an inconvenience. Like from an MLS perspective, what are some of the problems that you face with this? Like, are you 100% confident with your roster at all times? Are you 100% confident with your roster at all times? Are you checking the state website every day? Like, what functional things does it impact?
Well, and that's true, and I don't know if my data share partner is in here, but I can tell you that initially we screen all that data and we do that check on intake. But if that changes over time, we may or may not catch it. And if you're in a data share, you might be in a place where you're just accepting that as gospel, right? That what you got is correct information. And one of the things for us in a completely integrated market where it's not just a data share, literally the data is in both systems, we get dupes, and my CTO will tell you it's like magic voodoo to dedupe. Like, we always get we have a vendor or, maybe somebody working downstream that, asks us how to do this. And we're like, we can tell you what we do, but we can't guarantee that it's going to work 100% for you. And so, that is a real challenge too, because again, I might be Jeff Bosch and Nina's system, and I might be the Bosch team and Matt's system, and maybe we don't catch that on a screen, and maybe there's multiple listings for something, and it's hard.
This comes down to third-party vendor providers, right, that are working with the brokerage directly, and you're trying to pull a simple, basic production report, and there are 3 copies of the same office, but it's 3 different office IDs in those 3 systems. And so what you're ending up doing as a broker is going through each of those systems. I have a literal Excel spreadsheet that has the list of all my offices and what their office codes are in each of those MLSs, so that it makes my job easier. But there has got to be a better way to get that information in a streamlined way to the broker from the MLS.
And maybe not in Matt's world, but I can, anybody that has managed a brokerage office, which in your past of being a brokerage, like if you mess up an agent's their production, that's a bad day for a broker, right? Like they're upset with you. You might actually lose that agent for your inability to know what they've done. And it's not that easy, right? Because an MLS, by nature, for many of us, is an incomplete set of property transactions, which we're already trying to add to. So to make it harder by having to vet that out from multiple different systems, it's a lot of work on the broker.
And we don't have a big margin. There's been a lot of change in the brokerage world in the last year, and people are on pins and needles. I feel it. I don't know if you guys are feeling it, but I certainly do. And I think that, some of these kind of larger problems that brokerages have from the data perspective, or even from, MLSs that have a data share, and there are multiple office codes, multiple office IDs, multiple agent names. How do you filter through that, right? And I think that that's kind of coming to you, who's doing it on a much larger scale. How is Zillow kind of tackling this problem?
We've had so many internal work groups that have tried to just look at what could we do to identify all the different parts of this. I think one of the reports that we came up with, as we're just looking at the way agents are named and brokers are named and teams are named across all the different states, across all the MLSs, there's 87 different personnel types that we could see in our systems. Yeah. It makes it very difficult for us to track a lot of that stuff, and I can't imagine how difficult it is at all the other levels when we have the resources to try to figure that out. But we just haven't come up with a solution that everybody will adopt. Going back to what you said, maybe there's politics involved. Maybe there's just not enough funding to go get it done because nobody wants to own it. Does Zillow want to own it? Does RESO want to own it? Does Arello want to own it?
The brokers probably don't want you to.
Probably not. But those are the questions that we're asking, because it is a problem for everybody, and we tried to attack it as much as we can internally. And even with the level of Q&A that we put into it, there's always dupes, because people put their email address in wrong. They put their license number in there wrong. They do all kinds of little things that we talk about in all the other work groups at RESO and the need for standards, but it's still human at the very beginning of it. So if that gets broken, it trickles down through the entire system. It's really hard to go clean it back up after it's already in there.
And what does that do to the consumer experience downstream from you?
Anything that you do to mess up the consumer's experience, whether it's the wrong name or you connect them with the wrong person or nobody responds to them, there's issues all across the board on that. What's the next? What, I know there's other parts of this.
There are other parts of this. So I think, one of the things that I would be interested in knowing in terms of like along the lines of this conversation is if you were to say that there was like a single pain point of something that could be solved that could make everyone's lives easier, what would that be for you?
For us, that would be just a universal ID. One thing that would attach to everything. Like, on our phones, we have single sign-in. In our systems, we have single sign-in. Why can't, in the real estate industry, once you become a licensed professional, why can't there be one thing that's associated with you that can carry on to your logins in one MLS or two MLSs, or to your licensing system or anything else? We figured it out in so many other aspects of our lives, whether it's your Gmail login or your Google login, your Facebook login, the things that work across multiple platforms. Can we come up with some type of SSO that people will adopt because it's going to make life easier? Is it going to generate billions of dollars of revenue? No, but it takes away a friction point. I would love to see more of that happening.
Yeah, so I love that you said, we're talking about money, right? And like, I think we had this conversation on our kind of prep call of, it takes money to do anything, right? And, as MLSs, you all know how hard it is to like raise dues, to, kind of come up with the actual funds to do the work. And I think that was something that we were brainstorming a little bit about, like where could that come from? Is it a company that decides to do this that is, agnostic and not kind of part of the industry? Is it the industry itself? Is it the MLSs? Is the brokers that pay for it? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it goes back to a lot of the themes of everybody else that you've heard today. It's about getting involved. Like, there's a lot of stakeholders that are in this room right now that need to be involved in having these conversations, because this isn't overly technical. But there are stakeholders that have deeper pockets, there's some that don't, but this is a need that'll help the entire industry out. It just goes back to having a standard. So maybe part of that work group also is, let's identify other stakeholders that may not be in the room right now. Let's see if they have an interest in it, and can we get some type of fund together to do this and assign responsibility, or who wants to own it? I mean, that's one of the bigger questions just in and of itself. There's plenty of people that would take an interest to it, because you will see an impact from this relatively quickly if we can move it along, but we've got to have the right people there, and it needs to be open to everybody, not just the ones that are here today, because it affects everybody else.
And we need to have the right buy-in as well too, because I mean, you started this part of the segment with licensee, right? And the reality is that people that touch MLS data are not always licensed, right? So there might be an admin identifier, there might be things beyond that we just can't use license data for. We can't use NERDS numbers for, because maybe they're realtor, maybe they're non-realtor, right? So I mean, that really gets to more that idea of a universal lookup, a universal, identifier for somebody as an individual that you can port across multiple systems.
And we're not the only ones looking into this. I know that the work group's been doing it, RESO's been working on it for a long time, but there are other stakeholders that have been looking into this. Where's my friend Eric from Arello? Is he out there? There he is in the back. Arello, the Association of Real Estate License Law Officials, for all the state commissioners, this is something that Arello is looking at too. They're a big stakeholder in this. They would love to see an ability to make a universal identifier, or at least cleaner coming through it, so that one, if something happens at a state level, maybe you get notified a lot sooner, and you don't find out 3 months later that somebody lost their license, or they're suspended, or whatever disciplinary actions are against them. Like, that's important information, because you also have to protect the consumer, just like the regulators were. The other large tech vendors that are in here, you're dealing with the same data that everybody else is. These are things that would just overall make everything easier and flow better, and then you have correct information in front of you, which helps everybody out.
What do you think is the fear behind, like, is there a fear behind making this a reality?
I think no matter what topic you're discussing, somebody is going to be afraid of it because it's not theirs. or they didn't come up with it, or we have the way that we've always done it, that's pretty prevalent in the real estate industry. We've always done it this way, why would we change?
Or control, right?
Yeah, or control.
They're in control of me.
Or, at a very basic level, maybe this just doesn't affect them. I've only operated in this market. It's just me and my broker, or whatever the case may be. How does this impact my life at all? Why would I get on board with this? And when you get into those situations and all those people come together, it has to be pretty universal adoption. 50% doesn't get anybody anywhere.
Well, I mean, I think that goes back to your point of, there being kind of political kind of issues surrounding progression, right? And I think that what we all know is that, we have to change. We have to think about things from a bigger picture. It's what RESO's been doing for, as long as it's been around, since its inception, and so many of you thought leaders in the room that are kind of coming out and saying this is this is a problem that we're seeing locally, and really our mechanism at Broker Advisory is really just to talk about those kind of pain points that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis without really kind of thinking about what that bigger picture looks like, and then we lob it over to any other work group that's really going to dig into it becoming a reality. But I think that one of the things that could solve a lot of our problems is that if we did have these mechanisms in place and we were operating from that base level agent standard, agent, brokerage, MLS, it's just going to help, I think, streamline things for the consumer, which is really all we're looking at right now.
Yes.
Two thoughts real quick. We've mentioned pain points a couple times. Pain points from the aspect of what the brokers are dealing with. It is not the same as the pain point session we'll do this afternoon. That tends to be a lot spicier, right? Like, you guys get pretty feisty with each other. The broker advisory work group is usually people that, they can at least identify with each other, and an idea gets floated up and then gets marinated a little bit, and we go from there. And then I didn't think that I would actually make this correlation in our conversation today, but we've had several mentions of the International MLS Forum. And one of the things that is really interesting, and I had the opportunity to attend that, is that some of the constraints we're talking about today are constraints we put on ourselves. It's the way the industry grew up. It's about ownership. It's about the way we've evolved. The whole rest of the world is trying to build what we have, but they're trying to build it backwards from the technology side. So they don't have those preconceived notions. They don't have those constraints. And so it'll be really interesting to see what the international community comes up with for solutions for certain aspects, because they might not end up with the same problems that we have.
Yeah.
I didn't have the opportunity to go to Milan, so I'm not feeling too bad for you there.
It's not horrible.
I think part of the reason that I think Broker Advisory Work Group is a place where we can generate some of these ideas, because you all are serving the broker members. And I'm sure if you went back to your broker members and said, is this really a problem? They would say that in their downstream products, their vendor products, they're seeing this as a massive pain point. This is a very large example because you're in multiple states and multiple MLSs and just like a large, number of agents as well. But, if you ask the onesie twosies, they would tell you the same thing. I mean, the output is a problem, like in terms of the data from vendor partners because of this issue. So
we're in the right place to talk about it, though.
Yeah,
this is a solutions-based conference. It's a solutions-based.
Solutions-oriented.
Yes, and we will tackle these problems and keep working on it. I want to stay involved. I want Zillow to continue to stay involved. These are the best minds in the business for these type of things. So once again, just get involved and keep doing this stuff. We will make it better over time.
There you go. And maybe one last plug to that, because there's probably some of you in the audience saying, I don't really have a connection with a broker or this and that. You can encourage them to participate, or the thing that I can tell you, and all three of us can kind of identify with, brokers tend to focus on what's on fire at the moment, and data standards is probably not that issue, right? So it's hard to connect people at the right time with the problems that they're having. So, it does kind of take the whole community to embrace that and try to bring it in, because we might have a meeting that has some great ideas and totally misses like 80% of what the problems are out there because we don't have the right people in the room. So don't think that what you collect is not important. It is absolutely important to bring in as a whole to help us move forward. So,
awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you very much.
for you.